All right, let's bring in Rand Paul, Kentucky Senator, Republican Senator. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning.
Good morning. So the White House is saying that, thanks for coming on, that they believe that the president learned about it, or they know that the president learned about it when we all did, when it was reported in the news. But Trump on Truth Social wrote this: Biden knew all about this, just like he knew all about Hunter's deals. Do you think that if the AG is involved and the director of the FBI are giving the go-ahead, do you think the president knew?
You know, I think this is an attack on our constitutional republic. I think it's an attack on the rule of law. This is the FBI being used as a political weapon against your opponents. And do I think the director of the FBI knew? Absolutely. Do I think the attorney general knew? Absolutely. I can't vouch for how far it went up, and they may have tried to keep the White House at arm's length, but I wouldn't be surprised if the White House knew. But I can tell you I'm not surprised with Christopher Wray. I've challenged him before on whether or not it's constitutional to allow foreign intelligence warrants to be used against Americans. You'll remember when they spied on Trump to begin with, it was a foreign intelligence court and warrant. This is not really the same constitutional standard as the Fourth Amendment, and so they don't have to prove probable cause. And it was a terrible thing that we allowed to happen in our country, and it should never be used against a Republican or a Democrat candidate. But he allowed that and agrees with that. So I'm not surprised that he also would allow something like this to happen. But it's demoralizing for the country, and it takes away so much faith in our law enforcement to say, oh my goodness, they're going to use the FBI to go after people they disagree with politically. This is a sad moment for our country.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. But the thing is, I like to know what the warrant says, number one. Number two, I would like to know if does the Department of Justice understand it's in their best interest to start speaking out? They're overwhelming any message that you think Democrats want to talk about with these bills passing. This is smothering everything. Do you think it's incumbent on them, not hopeful, but do you think it's incumbent on them to speak out today or tomorrow and say, what were you doing?
Without question, I think the order to allow the raid on Mar-a-Lago on Trump's house has to be revealed. I think we have to know, under what pretense do they think this is right. I think it's going to have to wait till November till there's a full investigation. And I've never been a fan of overusing impeachment, but I think there has to be an investigation. And if it warrants it, there's going to have to be a look at whether or not the Attorney General has misused his office for political purposes. Have they gone after a political opponent? I mean, this is beyond the pale. No one would have ever imagined before that we would be using, or one political party would be using the FBI to attack their political opponents. Now, this is really something that's going to require investigation, and I wouldn't be surprised if the investigation leads to abuse of power, that this could even lead to an impeachment of the Attorney General.
Wow. Meantime, Senator, the White House is set to admit more migrants after DHS ends Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. All this as Texas Governor Greg Abbott continues to bus migrants to blue cities. At this point, Senator Paul, what is left to deter these migrants from entering our country illegally? Seems like there's nothing left.
I think it draws attention to it by sending them to New York, and so attention is drawn to all these people flooding into the country. But ultimately, we have to do this. We have to change our laws and/or court opinions to get to the point where if you come in illegally, you're sent immediately back. I think the system should be such that if you're caught illegally crossing, you're picked up and immediately deposited on the other side. Nobody's allowed to enter illegally. We don't have them come in. We don't have all these long court process. If you're caught in the commission of entering the country illegally, you should be sent back. Combined with that, though, is I'm not anti-lawful immigration, and I'm actually for more work permits. I'm for more lawful immigration. I have many good friends who came here. My town is full of great people who came here who immigrated lawfully. So I'm for more of that. And I think we actually could have more of that lawfully, but we can't have any. I would send everybody back, but right now they won't let you. I mean, even under the Trump administration, we had Remain in Mexico, which was something we agreed to with Mexico, but still people crossing the border weren't remaining in Mexico. We weren't really able to send people back. I would send everyone back 100% until they get the idea that you can't come in illegally, line up at the official port of entry, and guess what? If you do it lawfully, I think we can actually admit even more lawful people than we do now.
You know, Senator, we're so sorry for everything that your folks in Kentucky have gone through with the recent flooding. I know that affected really eastern Kentucky and then western Kentucky. They were affected by last winter's tornadoes. And you're asking to use, for these waivers, to use money from COVID to help these individuals and help their families. How is that going? What do you have to do? What is that process? And will they allow you to do that?
There's hundreds of billions of dollars that was allocated. It was way too much for COVID. In fact, nobody wants any more masks. They don't want any more home tests. Don't send these people who can't live in their house anymore. They don't want 100 home tests for COVID. But that money could be more wisely spent on infrastructure, and there's 100 some odd bridges in Knott County that have been wiped out by the just a unprecedented flood. And so let's reorient that money towards something more useful. We did pass legislation to allow local county judge executives and local magistrates to reassign some of the money, but there still are some attachments. And what I'm proposing is that President Biden give a waiver for disaster areas. We typically, the president officially designates disaster areas. Why doesn't he just give them a waiver? We should also give them a waiver to the onerous EPA requirements. One of the big complaints they have in Knott County and Perry County is the ditches are full of silt, and they've been filling up the ditches and creeks for probably decade upon decade. They want to deepen their creeks by dredging them, and then the Corps says they can't because of the EPA, because of some crazy, environmental alarmist, when dredging the creek is what provides safety for these people. Right now it's raining hard in eastern Kentucky, and because the ditches are already full of water and already full of silt, they're worried about flooding even with less severe rain than they got the last time.
All right. Senator, this is perilous times. Would you say, in particular, with the amount of people who are now unifying around the President of the United States, do you think that this might be a good time for him to declare if he's going to run?
I think it's better to go through the midterm elections. We need to win the midterm elections based on our candidates and our message. And then I think the presidential election should wait till after the midterms. I think it'd be a big mistake no matter what. I do think, though, they're making a martyr of the former president, and if anything, elevating his chances. And the thing is if the mass majority of the country thinks that the government is actually using the apparatus of their FBI to go after a candidate, it will make him even more popular. And they think that people are just going to lay down and say, oh, no, it looks like criminal activity. No, people distrust so much the government that we've gotten to the point where, for example, do I know that the boxes of material they took from Mar-a-Lago, that they won't put things in those boxes to entrap him? How do we know? Their lawyers weren't allowed to see the boxes go. They weren't categorized.
That's going to be a problem.
Thousands of documents were taken. Yeah, how do we know that they're going to be honest with us about what's actually in the boxes? How do we know that was in the box before it left the residence if the lawyers weren't allowed to see everything? So, they've lost a great deal of trust, and it's a sad day for the country because this truly is an attack on our constitutional republic.
Yeah, we were wondering legally if a lawyer wants to be there, they have the right to be there.
You'd seem they would have the right to be there, but not in this case, because
Todd's
again,
a lawyer.
The FBI, quite frankly, it boils down to they have the guns, and if there's a guy with a gun, many of them, 30 in fact, you're going to listen to him.
And his lawyer said they brought in backpacks. What was in those backpacks? Did they bring those in to fill them up, or did they have something in there?
I suspect that there will also be more litigation on this. I mean, because I think there'll be an attempt to say, did they have a warrant that said they could break into a safe? Did they have a warrant to go in to the president's wife's chambers? I mean, did they have a warrant to go anywhere they wanted to? This is really an abuse of power. And this isn't over by any means. And I think enough attention hasn't been paid to Congressman Perry's phone. We have the FBI now going after Republican congressmen and taking their phones. And the thing is they have taken January 6th, and they're now saying, well, these are crimes. Look, there are political opinions about who should be electors, whether they should be appointed by governors or state legislators. This has been going on a long time, and we're actually going to address this in legislation. But because you have an opinion on this doesn't make it a crime. And so they have criminalized the whole act of having a debate over how we seat electors. And this is from someone who didn't agree with President Trump's argument on January 6th. I ended up voting to seat the electors because I don't think Congress should, at that very last minute, try to change elections. That's where I am. But I have no sympathy at all for the government, for the FBI to come in and take a congressman's phone. I think that's an incredible abuse of power. And without evidence that they really committed some kind of real crime, like they've harmed someone in some way, you know, a real crime, not some sort of made-up political crime. This is a very, very worrisome where we're coming to. I mean, if the FBI is going to go after political targets, we've got a real problem in our country. All
right, Senator Rand Paul, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.